Hello Indie Game fans, we are closing out the year pretty strong with a couple of Game of the Year contenders, hidden gems and some early access games laying the foundation for 2025, so let's begin with Kill Knight, an all-action arcade-style twin-stick shooter that plunges you into a world of eternal death. You play as a desecrated corpse inside reanimated armor and have been branded as the Kill Knight, fighting your way through the abyss in order to kill the last angel. So how metal does that sound? Of course, action and gunplay takes center stage here since you are faced with swarms of enemies, but have the firepower to take out large chunks of them at a time and just feels so satisfying as you brutally execute your enemies. It is level based and there is a high score and leaderboard aspect to the game, and while it technically only has 5 arenas, the action will keep you coming back for more, with the gore-filled visuals looking pretty sick as well. I always thought it was a missed opportunity for there not to be a Yoku's Island Express 2 since that team disbanded, and I have not seen another Pinballvania title, that is, until Pinball Spire came along. As a brave and plucky pinball, you must explore the mysterious spire, finding an intricate maze of pinball tables, gaining special abilities to access new areas, and is what I love to see in indie games. This video is sponsored by Dungeon Inn, a cozy turn-based strategy management game in which you play as an ambitious innkeeper who has struck a deal with a dragon, allowing her to open up and operate her inn at the very strategic location at the mouth of a dangerous dungeon. You have to cater to the needs of adventurers from 2 rival guilds in order to maximize your profits while minimizing conflict between these competing groups, trying to keep them apart as much as you can, but when they inevitably clash, you have to be even-handed on how to deal with the situation in order to keep your double dealing a secret. Manage the chaos, keep your guests happy, and watch your business thrive, reinvesting the profits to upgrade facilities and attract more customers. Can you juggle the balance, or will the guilds discover your clever plots? All of this and more in this game, where the developers are giving away exclusive Steam keys to the full game via their Twitter page, which you can find linked in the description below. A neat first-person dungeon-crawling RPG is Monomyth, where you delve into the depths of an apocalyptic fantasy world, having to explore an ancient ruin in search of your missing brother, who was sent by your father the king to retrieve a primeval seed said to be able to calm the gods down and to bring peace and calm back to the world. This is a first-person title, so combat is key and it feels okay here, allowing you to swing your sword, cast spells, dodge, parry and block, using a wide variety of deadly weapons and powerful magic. The cool thing about this game is that it is open-ended in exploration, with passages linking back to earlier areas as you learn about the space you are in, but also has an almost immersive sim kind of interactivity with the world, such as the ability to attack wooden doors to break them so that you can access the room behind, and has been cleverly designed from what I have seen. Of course, there will be different biomes and themed areas of the dungeon, along with a variety of enemies, puzzles, and even a keyword-based dialogue system, looking like a throwback but with modern polish as well, making it one to watch in early access. Spin Hero is a thrilling symbol-building roguelite deck builder with a slot machine as a central feature in which you are spinning the reels to determine your fate in battle, collecting powerful symbols to strengthen your inventory after every battle, and having to adapt and evolve your strategy with each run. Of course, this takes inspiration from the Luck Be a Landlord school of design, but with a more familiar fantasy world with combat as a central feature. There are 4 playable characters, each with their own distinct playstyles, along with over 120 symbols, meaning that there is room for experimentation and strategy as you try to find that overpowered build that will allow you to defeat the final boss. Do note that it appears to be not as varied as other games in this space, with a more limited set of viable tactics but it's a great introduction to the subgenre and is fun to wrap your head around. It is ripe for expansion however, even if it isn't an early access title, but no plans or roadmaps have been announced as of recording, but it's still a neat little game. We also had the 1.0 release of Vampire Hunters, which itself seems like a cheeky reference to Vampire Survivors, only with actual vampires in this game, being a unique bullet heaven style first person shooter that throws swarms of enemies at you, Survivors style, but at the same time allows you to absolutely fill your screen with guns of your own. Don't think too much about how your character is holding all of these weapons, since it quickly becomes ridiculous, which is the point of the game. Each character or hunter has unique abilities with the roguelite style choice of upgrade within a run as you get more and more powerful. However, it is not all grimdark and moody, instead having a light-hearted tone and for some reason an electronic disco vibe, which is kind of weird but interesting, so it's absurd, cheesy fun that is just a good time. A cute looking management sim is SkyBrew Entropic Strategist, in which you are building and managing your very own flying cafe in the clouds. The goal is of course to stay in business, but to do so, you have a couple of things to manage. Firstly, design your cafe so that the layout makes sense for both your customers and employees, where you have the freedom to customize every aspect, including the aesthetics. Any successful cafe will also rely on its staff, where each employee has unique skills and personalities, and you need to hire the right mix to create powerful combos so that the cafe is well run. You also have access to a research lab, which is not as sinister as it sounds, since you are experimenting to create unique coffee and baked goods to sell, but the main antagonist in this game is entropy, or put differently, chaos, which is caused by customers, furniture, random events and more. So you need to keep everything neat and organized. Luckily, you have strategy cards to deploy at critical times, such as getting a quick boost in sales or to make your employees more productive, also having additional mechanics like a culinary contest to test the level of service in your cafe, all wrapped up with a wonderful pixel art style and will be for fans of the genre. It's been a little bit of a rough year for Metroidvania fans since there have been just a handful of really standout titles, which is why it was nice to get AWAKEN Astral Blade in October, since this is a pretty decent entry in the genre. You play as Tanya, a bionic girl tasked with searching for a missing investigation team in the rainforest of a remote island, but a mysterious energy source has mutated the local flora and fauna into aggressive monsters. Combat is the focus here, since you have a wide range of combos at your disposal, mixing skills and attacks together to take out your enemies. There is also a parry system, but it stops short of being a Souls-like, even if it does have a progression system that requires you to spend currency to unlock upgrades. It's a little rough around the edges, with some reports of bugs and translation not being the best, since it does come to us from a Taiwanese developer, but they have been hard at work patching the game to iron all of that out, and is a good one of these. October is spooky month, so even while I'm not usually a horror game person, I have to give props where it's due, especially with a game like Tostchu, a unique and intriguing game that has you running a sandwich shop in central Anatolia, Turkey, where you're doing sandwich shop stuff like buying ingredients, transferring it to the fridge, cutting it up, taking orders, making toast and collecting money, but also witnessing strange events unfolding. There are no jump scares in this game, so it is more about the foreboding sense of atmosphere that it creates, which is well done, with the lighting, colour palette and PS1 inspired polygonal visuals certainly aiding in the presentation. So if you're still feeling peckish for something creepy, this is the title for you. I was honestly expecting Europa to do much better than it has done in terms of sales, at least based on my estimates extrapolated from the number of Steam reviews, considering how much hype and inherent virality that game had, which probably had to do with its length and amount of content. But I would still recommend this absolutely gorgeous game. You play as an android, which is exploring Jupiter's moon of Europa, which has been terraformed by humans into a lush paradise, but yet no humans remain, which is the central mystery of the game. It's a fairly linear exploration title that sees you traversing the world and going from one landmark location to the next, having some simple puzzles as well, but the whole thing about this game is the visuals, as well as movement through the world. It feels great to run, glide, slide, and fly away across the majestic landscapes, having an art style reminiscent of Studio Ghibli movies, and tells the narrative through diary entries. Not the most challenging title for sure, but it's a wonderful place to spend a couple of hours in to just simply exist and chill. Things have a funny way of coming around full circle, since Karate Survivor definitely has Vampire Survivor's DNA, but yet being a martial arts themed title also draws upon 1980s action movies, with the melee focus making it quite a different kind of game, and is refreshing enough to give it some attention. Of course, the main character looks like movie star Jackie Chan, with the combat reflecting the action movies that he starred in, since the improvised combat system is front and center. You'll be using your fists, feet, and whatever you can get your hands on, from plates to bottles, mops, and even the environment itself, like pushing objects at enemies or bringing down scaffolding, in order to deal with the waves of goons and bad guys that get sent your way, in a manner which is pretty satisfying. There are new and permanent techniques, upgrades and skills to unlock in between runs, along with the more classically designed boss battles as well, having variety in biomes and locations, being a fun take on this subgenre and is worth a play. A curious narrative adventure game is While We Wait Here, in which you play as a diner owner, preparing food and serving your customers when the news breaks that the world is ending. And the game is about how you deal with that fact. Customers' reactions range from denial to acceptance, and you can listen to their stories, talk to them, and help them make choices that will determine their fate, with the variety of options here leading to different endings. This follows a curious trend of narrative titles with a cooking element like Arctic Eggs, which have weirdly exploded in popularity, where I believe the art style has a lot to do with this, such as in the case of Tostchu mentioned earlier. Characters are fully voiced, and while the game isn't the most complex in terms of mechanics, the writing and characters are the key draw, and giving the increasing possibility of mutually assured destruction in our own world might be a game worth experiencing. A cozy game of interest is Amber Owl, a shop management and life sim game that is all about building relationships with a diverse cast of prehistoric animal islanders. You'll take on the role of a shop owner, tasked with gathering, crafting, and selling items to meet the unique needs of your customers. There's a light management sim aspect, since you are customizing the layout of your shop, including where items and goods are placed, like in Moonlighter, and as you grow and expand the shop, you'll unlock new decor, walls, and floors so that you can attract even more customers. However, it is not just about the shop and making as much money as possible, since you'll be able to use your profits to help rebuild the island and unlock new areas, since that allows you to explore more of the island and to uncover its secrets. This has a whopping 48 different paleo folk to befriend, each with their own personalities, preferences, and quests, so it's a lot more involved than you might think for a life sim game. With this averaging about 20 to 40 hours of playtime, at least based on the Steam reviews that I saw, so it has a decent amount of content. A game which has been in development for quite a while is Shady Knight, where I was surprised to see it pop up on the list of new releases, and I'm happy to report that this did not disappoint. This is a first-person combat title with a melee focus, in which you are making your way through abstract-looking levels high up in the clouds, having to combine melee attacks and parkour to take out your enemies. Key to all of this is a grappling hook, which you can use to directly latch onto enemies and pull yourself towards them, while also pulling them down to their doom, resulting in a very sleek, almost ballet-like rhythm to the combat as you zip from one platform to the next. There are no abilities that are locked away, so it is up to you to experiment and master the mechanics as you take on increasingly difficult levels, and while linear, there is a letter ranking system that grades you based on how stylishly you complete a level, from switching weapons and using different moves, having a little bit of that neon white vibe, but is more combat focused. Just a quick one here in Web Fishing, which is technically a fishing game in which you're casting your line and reeling in fish, catching creatures, buying new gear and cosmetics to catch more fish and so on. However, the genius of this title is that it's a multiplayer chat room as well, in which you can log on and spend time with friends or strangers, simply chilling out and fishing to keep occupied while talking to other people, all with a cute, almost Animal Crossing kind of vibe. I think that games or experiences like this are indicative of the times, since we had games like Kind Words that took off during the pandemic, since you could anonymously write nice words to strangers over the internet through that, with this title perhaps reflecting the need for social connection, where even joining in with randos seems like a good time. Another spooky title worth a mention is Psychopomp GOLD, an expanded version of a free game named Psychopomp, which released on Steam in January 2024 and is a horror-tinged first-person dungeon crawler with, again, a throwback 3D look. You'll be exploring labyrinths and discovering secrets in order to uncover the truth that lies beneath the surface, with the strange and bizarre creatures in this game certainly being the highlight. The creatures get weirder and more terrifying the further you descend into the depths of the catacombs, and is certainly a trip to experience. The cool thing about this game is that the original version is still up and free, so you can go play that to get an idea for yourself, and if you want more, do pick this up. Wizard of Legend 2 launched pretty rough since expectations were high going in, being the sequel to a fan favourite title, which is also being made by a new developer, since this is no longer by Contingent 99, but rather Dead Mage, creators of Children of Morta. But the tide has slowly begun to turn on this action roguelite. Of course, the change in art direction is worth a mention, going for more of a 3D look as compared to the pixel art of the original, where I was happy to see similar comments in the Steam reviews, so I'm glad that pixel art fans still exist. However, it is not a bad looking game by any means, just a personal preference kind of thing, with the core fast-paced spell-based gameplay still being quite fun and challenging, due to the variety of arcana that you can mix and match. The core complaints here come from a lack of content and variety, citing very few enemy types, similar attack patterns and repetitive combat, but the problem is that the yardstick is the original game, which is a very high bar to clear, and the developer probably launched too early in early access. However, I don't think this will be a problem in the long run, but it's probably a good idea to wait for a couple of updates first. We also had the highly anticipated release of SULFUR, a first-person action-adventure title with a cool look, whose demo was well received during events like the Steam Next Festival, having a little bit of an extraction shooter feel to this single-player game. You are exploring the world and delving into caverns, blasting away at enemies, and collecting weapons and loot, where you can add modifiers to your guns to customize them for use in different situations. Of course, having a crafting system as well. There is a risk-reward system of having to complete a dungeon or to get out before you get killed to retain items collected, having a wider open world to explore as well, and is a fantastic first step, and I'm interested to see where this goes in early access. I also have to mention the highly anticipated release of Rivals of Aether II, the sequel to an indie darling Smash Brothers style platform fighter, being of note since they are being published by Off-Brand Games, who has some of the biggest names in streaming behind it, and it makes sense for their community and audience. The news around this has been positive, with reports of the game's concurrent player numbers having already more than tripled that of the previous game over its entire lifetime. The sequel promises to deliver a fast-paced and flashy brawler experience with a focus on competitive depth, accessible gameplay and unforgettable characters. The last point is especially of interest since they have committed to free content, since not only will the initial roster of 10 characters be free, but also all future characters that will be added will be free as well, only monetizing on cosmetics, which is different as compared to other fighting games with their character packs. Players seem to be happy with this game, with the usual fighting game complaints about balance, but it looks like a worthy sequel that should only get better with time. Now this next title is an interesting one which might have carryover into your day-to-day work, since yes, Glyphica Typing Survival is a typing game which challenges your speed and typing accuracy, but adds in a dose of vampire survivors with enemies that swarm you on all sides, so you need to prioritize which to attack first. However, purely having high words per minute is not sufficient, since you need to consider the power-ups, weapons and overall strategy as well, using a variety of elemental effects and powerful weapon upgrades to defeat all enemies. The weapons, loot and upgrade aspect does feel significant, comparable to the weapon evolution upgrades in Vampire Survivors, and can feel pretty overpowered, with multiple difficulty levels as well, to put your typing skills to the test, even if the early access version does abruptly end. However, they have just released their first update on November 9th, adding augmentations to the game, which are additional bonuses and permanent progression, along with a new main weapon named the Barrage, after the volley of missiles it fires at enemies, chugging along quite nicely and has carved out a space of its own in a crowded landscape. Probably the secret best game of the month is DICEOMANCER, since I don't see anyone talking about this roguelite deck builder, which is primarily because of the art style and animations, but also because you are playing in first person and your attacks and abilities are animated as such. In a world of swords, magic and guns, you have to, ironically, fight your way through in order to get back to a peaceful life. In deck builder fashion, there are 6 character classes, 500 cards and 200 relics, and in addition to the card-based combat, you do have to roll d20 dice for various events and checks, and the dice can be used to directly modify enemy HP and adjust cards and relic effects as well, which makes it a very powerful mechanic, all with the awesome art and animation, which makes this a no-brainer. Another 1.0 release of interest is Zero Civet, a single-player top-down extraction shooter set in a fictional version of Eastern Europe in the post-apocalypse after the bombs fell, with the resulting fallout and radiation mutating creatures and turning the wasteland into a dangerous place. You need to venture out to scavenge for resources, completing various quest lines from NPCs in order to unravel the mysteries of the world and uncover its lore. Gear and weapons are critical in this game and really does have quite the extensive crafting and customization system, with over 35 guns to choose from and 150 weapon mods, so everything scavenged has to be carefully sorted and used in their most effective manner. Your home base can be upgraded, which is one of the main progression systems, but there's nothing quite like entering a new procedurally generated map, since the tension is palpable due to the threats. Of course, I do like the pixel art in this game, which is well done, not the most high bit and mind-blowing, but it works and can be rather detailed in environmental designs like the trees and trash laying on the ground, and is up there among the best games of the year. From developer Nomada Studio, who made Glees, comes Niva, another stunningly beautiful side-scroller, with the main difference being that this is more action platformer than adventure platformer, having more of a combat element to go along with the gorgeous set pieces. It tells the story of Elba, a young woman bound to a curious wolf cub, as they embark on a perilous journey through a decaying world. You'll be platforming and solving puzzles as you make your way through treacherous landscapes, with the occasional monstrous enemy encounter which can be rather tense. Time will pass in this game, and the wolf will grow from a tiny cub into a full-sized wolf, where the pair need to work together to overcome the obstacles in their way. The use of light and colour must be studied for any game developer, since the game is absolutely beautiful visually, with the sound design and music also aiding in the overall presentation. This next title might be somewhat of a dark horse contender for Game of the Year, since the pixel art action-adventure RPG Drova Forsaken Kin has been likened to the Gothic series of RPGs that comes to us from German developer Piranha Bytes, who also made the Risen series and is an expensive open-world RPG that has a little bit of an old-school feel to it. This uses Celtic mythology as a base for their world, in which you start off the game as a nobody, not some grand chosen hero, and have to find your way in this dangerous world. Fighting enemies, completing quests, uncovering secrets, and getting stronger in the process. The minute-to-minute real-time action feels good, having a variety of weapons and combos that you can use, augmented of course through leveling up and improving your abilities. You are free to explore the open world, and there is an emphasis on discovery as you learn more about the world, and central to this is the presence of two main factions, either of which you can join, but that will drastically affect the entire story. Curiously, it comes to us from a German indie developer as well, which appears to be a 6-person team of relatively young guys, no relationship with Piranha Bytes as far as I can tell, but they probably grew up with those games, which explains the influence. Of course, me being me, the pixel art is of note and looks gorgeous, making it a must-get for 2024. The next game from the developer of Dead Cells Motion Twin is titled Windblown, a fast-paced 3/4 view action roguelite which has an interesting setting, where your village is on a floating chunk of land orbiting a massive and deadly vortex which just so happens to spew out deadly enemies and sentinels, so you must take up arms to fight back. Despite the cutesy look, this, at least in trailers and cutscenes, is a lot more bloody than you might expect, since the anthropomorphic animals get absolutely wrecked by the sentinels, but that is cleverly woven into the gameplay loop since death is part and parcel of the game, allowing you to unlock special powers and gear by absorbing the memories of fallen warriors. The action and traversal is lightning fast, since you can dash from one island to the next, with each run filled with challenges and secrets to uncover. Of course, as you progress, you'll gain access to more combinations of weapons and abilities, allowing you to change your tactics when it comes to bosses, adapting to every situation, and also being allowed to equip up to 2 weapons with hidden alter attacks to unleash. It does have co-op support for up to 3 players as well, but is fully playable solo and is an excellent first step in early access. I mentioned this in my surprise releases video, so I'll keep it brief, since the minimalist defense RTS Thronefall is potential Game of the Year material, releasing out of early access after a relatively short period of time, and nails it in every aspect. It simplifies the RTS gameplay loop, since you only control a single avatar, which is used to interact with the world, constructing buildings in the day, and getting directly involved in the defense of your kingdom at night, having an awesome art style as well, with its popularity already inspiring a bunch of clones, so you know that there is something special here. Watch this video for more upcoming RTS titles, although it is probably due for an update, so stay tuned.
To charge and ride into battle yourself.